and the only time a customer service gets a call if there's a problem.
Yeah.
They're a well of information, and a lot of companies
Totally.
ignore to tap into it.
Yeah.
Which I do want to add that it's really important for companies to build some sort of ticketing systems or some sort of CRMs that allow you to log this feedback. Right? So a lot of customer service calls that happen, people will just pick up the phone call, they'll respond, they'll solve the problem, but then that data never gets stored anywhere.
Yeah.
Even though a lot of companies have been getting better at it, recording calls, but this data in the future can be utilized really well. You've mentioned a lot of interesting things, and some of the language is a little bit, UX focused.
Yeah.
I don't know if a lot of people understand that. How do we explain a little bit in
map or service delivery?
Correct, right.
Yeah.
These are terms that are not widely used across companies.
Yeah.
This is what we use, right? This is our language. But I want us to be very, I don't want it to sound like fancy words that are being thrown around, because each one of those statements have a lot of weight behind them, and they're all branch out into their own segments.
Yeah.
So if you can just dive in a little bit deeper, kind of.
Sure. So, I talked about a couple of different techniques. The first was just like stakeholder discovery. And so that's really, it's just a straight up interviewing technique. It can be, again, an outside facilitator is often useful because you have somebody who's coming with like a kind of a blank slate. There are no assumptions about what any particular team is doing or their relationship with another team. But you can also do that internally. So if you're, the UX lead on a project internally, you definitely want to take some time to sit down with all of the different people on the team and maybe even like build out a RACI chart or something where you're kind of mapping what everybody's roles are. You're having conversations with them about what they're doing, and then you're just gathering information. Usually for me, what it looks like is just a big Google Doc where I'm typing up notes from the conversation. I will usually structure like some questions in advance, but they're pretty straightforward. Tell me about your typical day. What are some of the challenges that you're facing? So I do plan the questions a little bit. And if there are things that are very specific, like if I'm maybe speaking to a sales team and they have concerns about an online or an e-commerce store taking away business or taking away the opportunity to have a sales relationship, I might probe some of those sorts of things depending on how politically sensitive they are. But again, that's one of those things where having a neutral facilitator, you can kind of play naive about it a little bit. But it can also be done by an internal person. And then it's just a big document and I'm looking for patterns. I'll usually go through and pull out kind of things that I'm seeing said over and over or things that are interesting to me. Sometimes I'll use just like a numerical rating system. So if I am seeing patterns, I'll notate, I saw people say some variation on this comment 4 or 5 times. I saw people say variations on this like 2 or 3 times. And so then you can kind of get a sense of what is top of mind for certain people when you're launching a big e-commerce project. And so that's like stakeholder discovery interviews. Experience mapping, and you can do this with information that's pulled internally. Oftentimes it's done with external research from customers or some combination of both. I think sometimes we forget that we're told to do a lot of interviewing. You always want to be talking to your customers, and that's very true. But like, there are people inside your organization that know your customers as well. Like, their biases, their assumptions for sure. But like, you can also surface a lot of really important things just from talking to different stakeholders about how in their niche job, they're interacting with the customer, and you can kind of start to thread together stories about who they think the customer is. And oftentimes you might see differences. The people in guest services might have a very different perception of the customer than the people in operations because they're meeting them at different points in the experience of the purchasing experience.
I want to interject real quick. We've found success actually interviewing customer service reps.
Yeah, they know so much.
Support reps. They have the largest amount of feedback because they're boots on the ground. They deal with clients all the time. So they actually have very, very in-depth information that like even operations people or marketing people, they're not even thinking about it. But you think about, customer service is there on an empathetic level.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
have to appeal, and the only time a customer service gets a call if there's a problem.
Yeah.
They're a well of information, and a lot of companies
Totally.
ignore to tap into it.
Yeah.
Which I do want to add that it's really important for companies to build some sort of ticketing systems or some
Mm-hmm.
sort of CRMs that allow you to log this feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So a lot of customer service calls that
Mm-hmm.
happen, people will just pick up the phone call, they'll
Mm-hmm.
respond, they'll solve the problem, but then that data never gets stored anywhere.
Yeah.
Even
And
though a lot of companies have been getting better at it,
mhm.
recording calls, but this data in the future can be utilized really well.